Hola, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including BoJack Horseman, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm your host, Alice Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Michelle Anderer.
Hello.
And Sam Quattro.
Hi.
Today we are continuing our episode recaps of Season 5 of BoJack Horseman. If you want to catch up on our previous discussions on episodes, you can always look us up at overlyanimated.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes. You can also listen to us on YouTube at overlyanimated.com/YouTube. And wherever you listen to us, we always appreciate any ratings and reviews you want to leave us. But yeah, today we are approaching the end of the season. We're with episodes 9 and 10, Ancient History and Head in the Clouds. For some reason, these are the only two episodes on the Season 5 Wikipedia article that don't have episode summaries. So,
Wow, that's mean. Because there's so much to say, they got intimidated. They stopped.
Is it that? We'll talk about these episodes. I guess as usual, we'll be doing a brief non-spoiler moment, just general impressions, and then we'll get deeper into the episodes later and maybe talk about how they connect to the finale of the season as well. So we'll begin with our general impressions. Sam, we'll go to you first. So what do you think about these episodes in general?
So Ancient History, when I first watched it, I was like, maybe not. I wasn't too much of a fan of it, to be honest. While I do love Hollyhock very much, the plot line really didn't do it for me. And all of BoJack's stuff that happens throughout, not a fan. The other one, Head in the Clouds, has a really great segment in it, but the rest of it is just, it's all over the place with, the gags and the seriousness and just everything that's going on in that episode. But I think it ends on, a really good place, that one.
All right. Michelle?
I kind of agree with Sam. I objectively really like Ancient History, but I do think Head in the Clouds has a very, very strong standalone segment at the end that we've been kind of boiling to for a while this season. But I think I was a little higher on Ancient History just because I think for me, the stuff with Hollyhock really worked and it made me really sad because it's just one more example of a relationship BoJack could have that's great and healthy, but he doesn't know how to deal with, and that makes me really, really sad. And I liked everyone's plots more. I love that Princess Carolyn, got back together with, I feel so bad. What is the mouse's name?
Ralph.
Ralph. He's been gone a whole season. I forgot. Yeah, I mean, that. I really liked them together last season. I liked them in this episode. It makes me a little sad. It looks like they're not going to get together, but that's fine. Princess Carolyn can do her own thing. I remember who he is. I remember his character. It's not his name. Ralph is not a very memorable name like Princess Carolyn. I mean, that's a memorable name right there.
That's true.
But Sam calling him Ralph Simpleton is also.
No, I did not say Simpleton. I said Simpleton. The ST. That's his name, right?
Stilton.
See, I don't even. Oh, Stilton. I wish his name was Simpleton. That would have been amazing.
That's a train wreck.
But yeah, I think both these episodes had great things about them. Even though by great, I don't necessarily mean enjoyable to watch on a personal level. They were strong in their own ways. But I think for me, Ancient History as an overall episode was stronger than Head in the Clouds.
Okay, interesting. I lean closer to Sam. I like Hollyhock as a character, but I think that Ancient History as a whole is kind of a weak episode in this season. Whereas Head in the Clouds, I think, in agreement with both of you, the segment at the end is really the highlight of the episode and the thing that you leave remembering the most. But I also kind of enjoy the rest of the party scenes. I like the wacky side plot for once. It's so over the top that it goes into me being okay with it, I guess. So we'll talk about it. But yeah, I think that the Head in the Clouds is just a great setup to the ending of the season, and especially just that final moment between Diane and BoJack. It ends up ramping up the emotion in places that the season gets to a couple of times, and this is one of the moments where it's at its strongest to the tension in this season. So I guess we can begin there. So I guess we'll remove the no spoiler talk. So like if you want to go find those episodes, if for some reason you haven't watched them by now, go ahead, go look for them. But yeah, with Head in the Clouds, I think that the segment of these two episodes that ends up standing out the most is this final conversation between BoJack and Diane. That they've shown the show. BoJack gives his speech about the show and how he says that we all have filberts in our lives. We've all done terrible things that we regret, but since we're all terrible in our own ways, we're all okay. and that. And
I don't know if that is true.
It's not.
I think that's one desperate horse's wish in the world, but I don't think the world is quite that way for everyone.
Yeah, well, we've touched on this before, that this is sort of a meta commentary on the worries of shows like Rick and Morty or like BoJack Horseman, where we show these characters doing terrible things. But because, as Diane says, we make them likable, so it makes it easier for people to rationalize. So, well, I guess I'm not that bad then, sort of thing. And it does seem to touch on BoJack Horseman a little bit. I don't know if you guys feel like this is applicable to this show itself, or like what is the effect of adding this message into this episode, considering the type of show this is.
I thought it was a pretty great meta commentary, that whole discussion that they had.
Michelle, any thoughts?
Whether it's a commentary on BoJack itself or a certain kind of show, because I was definitely getting not if it was, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it definitely made me think like immediately of Rick and Morty as opposed to BoJack, and I think that's because BoJack as a show seems to have a much more clear directive to show this person at their worst and to not glorify it in a way that seems fun. Like I don't know anyone who would proudly wear a BoJack t-shirt and say like, oh, I'm such a BoJack, yeah, that's me, I'm so cool.
Ooh.
Like no one, but a lot of people would do that about Rick, and I feel like that's a pretty big difference. So I think it's not so much a meta commentary on maybe BoJack as a show, but shows like Rick and Morty, absolutely. Like that's a conversation that should be had for sure.
Like the weird part is, I think I might wear a BoJack shirt. So
Oh,
like, I don't
God,
know.
Alex.
I'd be
Because you
tempted.
identify as BoJack, though, or because you like the show and all of its messages?
Because I like the show mainly. But
Yeah.
like,
I mean, maybe buy like a BoJack poster for your bedroom, but don't like buy a t-shirt, bro.
that seems even edgier though. Like
It
I get
isn't.
a poster in my apartment.
Nobody is going to come into your apartment and see that, who is walking on the street, who would see you wearing a t-shirt.
Good point. But yeah, so we lead up to this discussion of the show, and Diane is like, "This isn't how you're supposed to act," and so we get to this eventual confrontation at the end of the episode, where like first Diane goes into like, "It's not the point of Filbert to make yourself feel okay." And then we get into the culmination of something that's been building in this season, which is confronting BoJack about New Mexico. We got the revelation of the tape by Anna Spanakopita earlier in the season, so Diane knows more or less what's going on. And in this episode, it seems that she reveals she's done research on her own. For the first time, it's acknowledged that there was stuff on social media about BoJack, which I found a little interesting on second watch, because it's like, how have other people not picked up on this? Like, just a drunk BoJack in the middle of a college.
That's true. He is a celebrity. You'd think some magazine would have run with that.
Yeah, so it feels interesting that Diane was able to find that very easily.
He was in a trench coat, wasn't he?
No one else could put the
Yeah,
he was together, but Diane.
He was in a trench coat and a hat, right?
Totally unrecognizable. And Sarah Lynn was there too just before she died.
Yeah,
right?
like,
So...
how did nobody else notice that?
Yeah, but so BoJack is confronted with all this information, and Diane continues on, like, I'm publicly your friend, and if you're doing creepy stuff, it makes me look bad. And this is also connecting back to what in the conversation with Anna Spenakopita, like, if we are protecting our shitty friends, then we're complicit in a way. And it seems like this is another culmination of that as well, like Diane finally being sick of feeling that kind of complicit with BoJack's behavior. I guess I don't know what the question here is if Diane is doing this appropriately or with the right motivations. If that's the question we want to handle, or more like just how do we react to like the way that Diane finally brings this up with BoJack in this scene.
I mean, I from what we've seen of Diane this season especially, I honestly don't think she's doing this for her own reasons. I think she honestly is invested in BoJack's well-being. And the New Mexico thing's a big deal to her, but I think that the New Mexico thing also is the catalyst of a bigger issue of she cares about him enough to want him to be doing better. And the fact that he keeps such a big secret from her and potentially did a very troubling thing is what really bothers her the most. And especially when he'll then like deflect conversation from that and won't give her any information and then, well, like, I'm just like you, like, we're the same. Because in her mind, no, you're not the same. You've done like unspeakably horrible things to a level I have not reached. And for you to put this on the same level, like, that makes her incredibly uncomfortable. But I do think, like, she does say, like, even though you're being an asshole right now, like, I do believe you can be better. I want you to be, because she is invested in that friendship and that relationship. But it's complicated. Like, any relationship in this show is so complicated. But I honestly do think she wants what she thinks is best for him, or at least for him to be getting help and to be more honest with himself about the fact that he has a real problem. And he's not willing to do that yet. And that's like the biggest issue.
Mm-hmm. And here we see BoJack like trying to like throw it back onto her, like, oh, it's because I make you look bad. Like, is that the reason why you're bringing this up? And that's kind of why I bring this up too, because I think that especially with like the superficial treatment that Diane sometimes gets from the fandom, that like some people might be willing to side with BoJack, but I think that it's important that in the rest of this conversation, it's made clear that Diane does care about BoJack's well-being in the end. Like, also at the very end, there's a good moment where she's like, even though you're being an asshole right now, like, I do think you can still be better. But it's just, but she, at the same time, like, immediately following that up with, well, if you're not getting that out of this, then this is a bad relationship and we need to separate, so to speak. And, like, another strong moment is at the very, very end when, like, Diane is trying to leave and BoJack grabs her arm and, like, to the point, like, you're hurting me. That's, like, a very uncomfortable moment to watch.
You can feel BoJack's desperation. He doesn't know how to be real with her. He doesn't know how to be honest with himself. But because they're such close friends, the idea of losing her makes him really desperate in a way we don't normally see. And it's just like, it's so uncomfortable, but it feels so real and so true to something real. And that's why it's like painful to watch it. But it's also why it's the best part of the episode. Yeah.
Also, like, just the idea, like, BoJack finally, like, says aloud, like, what happened with Penny and all, but in his mind, I guess he feels, like, entitled to Diane staying, like, hey, I gave you the information, why are you still leaving, sort of thing.
And that's, like, so not how this works, and he just doesn't understand. It's like, fine, you got out of me, you happy now? It's like, no, you admitted something really awful, and the way you spelled it out made it sound like if you hadn't been caught, it would have escalated to the point of you having sex with an underage girl, of the woman you were kind of in love with, and that just, like, actually makes it worse to know that. And he doesn't, like, get that part of it, that it sounds worse that he actually said it than whatever she was imagining. And it's just cringing from discomfort, the whole thing. It's so good, but yeah.
Yeah. Sam, do you have any final thoughts on, like, this whole scene here at the end?
Just made me sad, man.
Mm-hmm. How come
I
it
don't
makes you
know.
sad?
It's just like, I don't know. Because BoJack and Diane, they're friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And friends fighting just makes me sad. And it makes me sad that,
Yeah.
it had to come to this, that BoJack just can't be a person, essentially. He can't be somebody who, says things to other people without it being like a huge dramatic deal and like a huge show of like, oh yes, I'm doing this for you, and like, completely erasing all of his past mistakes in his mind. I don't know. It makes me sad. I felt sad. The end.
Yeah, well, that's the show. I think it made me feel.
It's
sad
hard to
at the end.
describe.
Yeah.
It just makes me feel sad in like a really complex way that I'm not emotionally prepared to deal with at this point in time.
No, and there are several layers to BoJack's assholery that are just disappointing. Especially like we say at times like, oh, well, compared to where he was in season 1, he's getting better. But then you get moments like this where you get moments like this where it's like, well, has he really? And Diane is also like very directly, you haven't changed at all. Like so. It does make you when moments like this happen in the show, it does make you question really like what is the direction for BoJack going forward. Now, also at the very end, like once Diane leaves, he begins combining painkillers and alcohol. And
That's
so
a great
Yeah,
idea.
that's always fun.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
He
And
takes
so,
like,
well,
what, six of the painkillers. Like, he takes a whole bunch, several handfuls.
Yeah, he just begins chugging them. Colors and fireworks and blurs begin happening, and that will set up what eventually happens in the showstopper, where basically the entire episode is just him blurring in and out of consciousness. So that's something to look forward to for episode 11. But cutting back to ancient history, because this is where it begins. Ancient history starts off with like us cutting between the show that he's making and him popping pills, and this is all happening like just like beginning the setup for all the blurring of lines between reality and stuff. But Hollyhock shows up at the same time as he is beginning to go into his drug addiction. I do want to say that Hollyhock, just in general, their relationship continues to be cute. At the beginning, like BoJack has the sign ready for him and all for her, and like it's just it's nice to see that BoJack, even in his all his assholery, like still has moments like this where he's able to show some form of empathy through his tough shell, so to speak.
Yeah, BoJack cares.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
he really, and it reminds me of early on the season when he's struggling to call her at school, and he calls her really late at night. And she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" La la la. And he can't even admit that he misses her, but she knows what was going on. And she's like, "I miss you." And you kind of get the same thing at the end of this episode when he drops her off, and she's just like, "Are you going to be okay? Only take painkillers when you're actually hurt and it's prescribed by a doctor." And then she's like, "I love you." And he can't say I love you back. It's too uncomfortable. It's too foreign. So he just goes like, But when she waves at him, he waves back at her. And it's like, okay, he's like, he's doing what he can to express how he feels. But it's just like, it was a small moment, but it really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's there are small moments in this episode that like are good for that. Also, at the very end when like Hollyhock is like, hey, like I could stay to like help you out and stuff, and BoJack is immediately like, no, you gotta stay in school, sort of thing. So like that's also a small moment that's like, okay, you made the right decision, like keep her down the right path at the very least.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
But the main storyline goes that Hollyhock goes to BoJack's house and she gets bad flashbacks from her previous season where she was secretly drugged, and so she eventually finds BoJack's painkillers and throws them down the sink. But of course, later on, it gets revealed that BoJack really doesn't need these painkillers anymore, and that at this point, it does seem that the addiction is already an addiction, sort of thing. But because of that, we spend most of this episode with the Hollyhock BoJack just them looking for drugs. So like, I don't know if that's the reason that this part of the episode is weaker than I would hope for a Hollyhock episode, but I don't know how you guys feel just about this general storyline of like them going from place to place looking for painkillers, sort of thing.
I don't know. It was kind of, for me, like from an in the narrative stereo point. That is not a word. Point of
It can be.
For me, like from an inside of the narrative point of view, it's like kind of like annoying, and I feel Hollyhock's annoyance. Like, why are we just driving around everywhere looking for these pills when I'm only here for the night? Shouldn't we be like hanging out, eating pizza and stuff? Like, is this like the most of this time you want to make? And from an outside the narrative stereo point, which is a word.
It's a real word. Stereo
Standpoint. So what the fuck is a stereo point? Anyway.
It's like a stereotype, but
it's the point on the stereo where it's the best part.
Exactly. No, but from an outside of the narrative standpoint, it was less annoying, I guess. I don't know. It's just that kind of like narrative device. Like, oh, you did this. Now we got to go from place to place and do this, that, and the other. Blah blah blah. And everything that's going on in Princess Carolyn's narrative and Todd's, well, maybe not Todd's narrative throughout this episode. it drives well. So like everybody's kind of rushing from place to place in this episode. It's kind of like a rush episode.
I guess that's true. They're like both the BoJack and the Princess Carolyn are just driving a lot.
Yeah,
so
the driving
that's
episode.
A connection.
Yeah. Road trip around LA for painkillers and babies.
The two most important things.
Yep.
That's a very Los Angeles thing to do, I think. Actually, there's a joke there with Hollyhock saying like, "Why do Los Angeles people think everyone understands your local references?"
Nobody does.
It's just. Yeah, the probably BoJack has made local jokes before that we just go over our heads, so that's I guess important to.
How many people live in Los Angeles? A couple million.
A lot. I think the answer is a lot, but
I'll look it up.
Numbers I'm unclear. But the various places they go visit include Gina's house, where eventually it turns out that BoJack and Gina end up getting back together as a result of him trying to give directions to Hollyhock.
Wow.
So
Gina,
that's how Gina gets
better.
P.S. Los Angeles has 3.9 million people in it.
Wow. Good.
Almost
good
4.
Research.
They gotta keep
almost
having
4
the
million
babies so they can have 4. You know?
Keep having babies and painkillers.
Yeah, how many of them take painkillers though?
I don't know.
Probably a lot.
I don't want to Google that.
There are stranger things you could Google.
I know, but I don't want to be put on like some sort of painkiller watch list.
Well, also in this episode, they go to the ravine where apparently Grease was filmed or something.
Yeah.
And speaking of watch lists, they try to buy drugs from this centipede-looking guy, and Officer Meow Meow Fuzzy Face shows them to try buying
Mike's
drugs.
lollipop. So good.
Yeah, his opening line is it lit in here or something like that.
Is it lit in here?
Yeah, that was the line.
Yeah, so,
I just like his hat that says teen. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, it somehow the centipede does not notice, and they get caught, and BoJack and Hollyhock run off, and it's when BoJack lifts Hollyhock over a fence that Hollyhock realizes, wait a minute, your back doesn't hurt, and then we get the whole revelation of like, well, maybe I don't actually need the pills, and that's mostly how that scene and that storyline ends until BoJack gets antsies and drives into traffic.
Which is like the same episode. So even though he acknowledges he has a problem with Hollyhock there, it takes him 5 minutes to put his life in danger to have a reason that makes sense to him to get back into the addiction. Which is pretty intense.
Yeah, I wonder, like, is it actually, like, consciously, I need to injure myself to get drugs, or is it just him being the withdrawal, like, making him go nuts and just make a weird
I
decision
think
at the
it's
end?
both,
both.
right? Because on the one hand, he is clearly going through withdrawal while he's waiting for the traffic to stop. But then also, Hollyhock gave him, in a weird way, and this is probably how his brain works, a green light to, if you actually are hurt and a doctor prescribes it, you can take it again. So in his mind, if
Driving in the traffic.
if I happen to get in an accident by driving into this freeway, then it's fine. And she said it's fine, so it's fine. It's not a problem anymore because I followed her instructions. I feel like it could be both.
Yeah, it probably can, and also in those cases, like you make weird leaps in logic too. So like, I guess that makes sense. It's like
it might have been an unconscious thing, but I'm sure in his brain, like when she gave him a reason to make it happen, he was like, okay, cool, file that away. Next time, yeah.
Yeah. And so that all sets up the painkiller stuff for the next episode. But the other main storyline of this is Princess Carolyn. First it starts off with Mr. Peanut Butter wanting to option a greeting card for a movie.
Yeah.
What is this? It's birthday, Dad. Okay.
Dude, why don't more people just option greeting cards for movies? That's gonna be the future.
It should be.
I mean, there are greeting cards that are a lot more complex than that. Like, they have, like, 5 lines of, like, a little story in there, and then on the other side is, like, a fancy picture and stuff. So I do think that there are greeting cards out there you can make movies out of. But
I like Birthday Dad.
Birthday Dad. It's so vague. It could be any kind of movie. That's the appeal. It could be a comedy. It could be a rom-com. It could be a horror movie. It could be sci-fi. There's so many options because there's so many dads and so many birthdays. Maybe that's what Mr. Peanut Butter was thinking about. I can't give him that much credit, but maybe.
It's very coincidental, too. I'm pretty sure that greeting card was dogs, so, like, it just sounded very coincidental that it was a birthday dog, so it's like, I see myself in that picture.
No, I literally think that's it, because the dad dog looks like him, but with cool shades on, and he has, like, 5 children surrounding him, looking at him with adoration. I'm sure. Who's like, ooh, I want to channel this. I want to play Birthday Dad. Look how many cool kids he has who love him.
Any chance we see this actually getting filmed in season 6?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they filmed Albert. I mean, and that Princess Carolyn did on a whim, so why not Birthday Dad?
Yeah, that's gonna be Mr. Peanut Butter's, like, his final season storyline. Like, he figures out that he's a terrible boyfriend as he's playing a dad or something like that.
What if Pickles gets pregnant and then he has to the real father being the fake father on Birthday Dad the movie?
Whoa.
I don't want that.
I don't want that either, but it could happen.
While we're talking Pickles, we can just like jump over to Pickles for a brief moment and head in the clouds, because she is distracted by the show and she goes off to help her friend with a crisis and had to text LOL. And that was pretty much our Pickles discussion for today. Thank you, guys.
Oh, Pickles.
And she runs away because she needs to go watch the entire show to make Mr. Peanut Butter feel better, apparently. Not a great setup for what eventually happens with Pickles and Peanut Butter later in this season, but yeah. But back to Princess Carolyn. Eventually, she has to talk to Ralph Simpleton or Stilton about the greeting card.
Ralph Simpleton. I love it.
I was like, okay, it has something to do with like Hilton, but I can remember if it was like Stilton or Stimpleton. Somebody's last name out there is Stimpleton.
Probably. But yeah, and so Ralph figures out Ralph is there while Carolyn gets a call to pick up a baby at the hospital, And they have this conversation about, like, hey, it's funny that you decided to adopt. I said that we should have looked for other options, and we never ended up doing that. So it's funny you decided to do it alone, sort of thing. And they keep following this throughout the episode of, like, hey, like, we could have done this together, or like, hey, why didn't you call me? And so like, I just found it interesting that, like, the direction we're going with Ralph is like him trying to insert himself back into Princess Carolyn's life, like, you know. I felt it kind of manipulative. I don't know how you guys feel about how Ralph handles Princess Carolyn in this episode.
You thought you both felt like he was being manipulative? Because I didn't at all.
Well, Sam, you go first. How do you feel?
I kind of felt that he was being a little bit, I don't know, going out of his realm of control when, you know, Princess Carolyn was holding the baby, and the mom was like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad that this has two parents," and she's like, and Princess Carolyn is like, "Ralph, don't lie to her," blah blah blah, and he's like, "Well, I want to have the baby now because, like, I'm dedicated to this life," but Princess Carolyn is over that, you know what I mean? And he keeps trying to push the issue, but it's over. It's over. It's done. And I didn't appreciate him trying to, you know, make it a thing again when it's been like over a year.
Okay, Michelle, defend your rat friend.
That was a good.
He's a mouse.
That's actually, yeah, I think he's a mouse.
Excuse me.
I thought you said rap friend for a second. I'm like, I don't think we've heard Ralph rap a single time, but maybe off screen. I do, Sam. That's a good point. The moment when he's saying, "Oh no, yeah, I do still want to raise a kid. Let's do it." It's like, dude, that is so not the time. You missed your boat. But I think up until then, all his questions were just him trying to, like, mentally sparse through how the relationship had suddenly ended and how they were both feeling, because she does say, like, "Oh, I wish you had stayed that night. Oh, but you were so mad I didn't want to intrude. Like, I wish you'd called me. Why didn't you call me? Why didn't you think you wanted me to?" And then she even says, "Well, what did we learn from this? Not to listen to what I say," essentially. And to me, honestly, it felt like really mixed signals from Princess Carolyn. And I don't normally say that, but I mean, it seemed like she did still, like, she regretted that they broke up, but then at the end of the episode, she's like, no, like, I don't want to have a baby with you. I just want to do it on my own. That's, like, the right thing for me. And, like, I honestly didn't 100% buy that, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if that's just because of her saying, "Oh, I wish you had called. I wish you'd stayed that night." If those were isolated feelings, or if it did mean in the future maybe she would like to get back to, like, it felt unclear enough that I was kind of like, what, Princess Carolyn, what do you want? Do you want to be a single mom and have your kid and just be career woman? That would be awesome, but, like, are you sure you don't want a partner? Because I'm not 100% confident that she doesn't not want a partner. And that's, like, kind of where I'm left. Like, I honestly don't know. I'm not sold 100% on either theory, so I don't know.
Interesting. And, like, I guess the season, I think, is leaning towards Princess Carolyn wanting to do it alone, just because, like, we have the Amelia Earhart story, right, which, like, tries to give backstory to Princess Carolyn's desire for a child. And, like, part of it is just the idea that she wants to prove to herself that she can do it in some way. And I guess that her mom did it alone, so, like, you could extrapolate that she wants to be able to do it alone too. But I also agree, like, there is an interpretation here where it's like Princess Carolyn giving mixed signals, like, she's letting Ralph accompany her on all this stuff. Like, she tries to push back a little bit, but Ralph always ends up staying around. It's like, you didn't have to come with me to the hospital, or, like, or at the very end, it's like, can I wait with you for the cab? This sort of thing. So, like, you can interpret those as signs of kindness, or also as Ralph, like, trying to get into places that maybe he shouldn't be. Like, I think there are two different ways of interpreting those things, especially considering how Princess Carolyn in these moments is a bit frazzled herself by everything that's happening. Like, she just realized in an hour ago that she might have a baby, sort of thing. So it all happens so fast, right? But yeah, so Princess Carolyn doesn't end up getting the baby because she gives a speech about how she can do it alone, and the mom is like, "Hey, I can do it alone."
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm
don't
actually
think-
worried about that.
I don't think
Mom.
adoption works that way, but sure.
It does at the agency that Princess Carolyn shows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you have to be kind of set in stone for that sort of thing. You know, you have to sign documents and stuff.
Well, you don't think it's like finders keepers sort of rules?
Maybe back like a couple thousand years ago.
What's the kind of what the like associate lady helping her is like? She's like, "Oh, that hospital's kind of far away." She's like, "Dude, you don't say no to free baby." Like that's the mindset she has about adoption, and she works for that place.
I would say no to a free baby. I don't want a free baby.
Well, yeah, that's because you don't
Babies
want a
aren't
baby, but-
free.
For
You
$6.
Well-
pay you pay for that baby's whole life.
Free now, pay later. I mean,
Oh my
that's-
God,
Maybe
that's
you
not a
can
good
maybe
deal.
you can adoption like a house. You can do like mortgage installments like every month.
On
Pay
this
off
baby.
baby.
I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of are.
Also, in episode 1, Princess Carolyn already paid a bunch of money to the agency
That's
anyways.
true.
$60,000. Oh.
Yeah.
But you
So-
gotta buy diapers and like clothes and
Medical
things.
stuff.
Yeah, so
Stuff.
humans are
Mhm.
not cheap to raise.
No.
Well, Princess Carolyn wants that responsibility, so
Yes, that's
let her have it.
Can we
life.
go like I know this is a tangent, but I'm thinking about the Amelia Earhart episode and and again, I feel like this season brought up a lot of questions to me about Princess Carolyn. I thought I knew. I don't really know how she feels about relationships anymore. And I don't know how she feels about babies anymore because in that episode, kind of my impression was that she wanted to go away. She didn't want to stay at home. She didn't want to be a townie. And when she thought she was pregnant, her mom gets really excited and she's like, "Oh, you're going to have this whole new life. You're going to live in the big house. They're going to take care of you. It's going to be so exciting." And my interpretation was like kind of through the osmosis of her mother's excitement and joy at this new chapter of her life, she warmed up to the idea of having a child and having a different role essentially, and being a stay-at-home mom who would be taken care of. And then when she lost that, she felt like, "Oh no, I failed to fulfill that role." But then immediately she goes off and does the like independent goal thing by herself. So now that she wants a child, is it like Alex was saying to prove to herself that she can do this? Which I don't think is necessarily the best idea because you're talking about a whole other person that you're going to be responsible for. And it's not just like a goal for yourself. You need to think about them too. Or is it because she like really wants a child? Like I thought I knew the answer. I thought she was always very maternal. She always wanted a kid because kids are great. She loves babies. But now I don't know if that's true or if she's just like, again, trying to prove this thing to herself. And that's why she wants to do it alone. And she doesn't want the help of Ralph. Like she might still like Ralph, but she's like, "No, this is my goal. For me, only me does goal. He can't help." Like, is that what's happening here? Like, I honestly can't tell anymore. And I care so much about Princess Carolyn. I just like want her happy, but I can't tell what her motivations are anymore. And that bothers me. Yeah, that's my tangent. The end.
Sam, any thoughts on Princess Carolyn's hopes and dreams?
I don't know. We all have hopes and dreams that
True.
change throughout our lives depending on what is happening.
Mm-hmm. On top of what I already said, like another thing is we call Princess Carolyn like having maternal qualities. Like one thing that comes to mind when I hear that is like I think it was like the best thing that ever happened episode where like BoJack and Princess Carolyn are in the restaurant. I think it's there where she says something along the lines like I love cleaning up other people's messes because it distracts me from my own personal life sort of thing.
Yeah.
And like that's a lot of what the maternal instinct of Princess Carolyn is displayed in the earlier seasons. Like she takes care of everybody in her life, but at the same time, like it's because she likes to let her professional life consume her, so she doesn't have to think about her personal failure sort of thing. So it's interesting that now that we're shifting to Princess Carolyn wanting a baby, like that obviously opens up the opportunity for Princess Carolyn to have more of a personal life. But then you wonder, like, is that like filling the void that the professional life was already filling, sort of thing, or like, well, if her motivations for wanting a baby are as sound as we would hope they would be, right? So I think in the Stop show, like, also the adoption agency lady touches on this too, like, why exactly do you want a baby, sort of thing. And once we rewatch that episode, maybe we'll talk about that a little bit deeper. But that is something that this season has touched on a bit more, of just like why Princess Carolyn exactly wants a baby, and if those motivations are the right reasons to get one exactly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And like, it just makes you think of Ralph when he's asking, so it's kind of weird that you want to adopt now when I suggested that and you were super opposed and wanted to give birth yourself. I kind of wonder that too. Why is this so on certain terms? I don't know. I wish I had more clarity, but we'll have more seasons, so maybe she'll figure everything out.
Maybe Princess Carolyn needs to go to therapy so she can figure this out.
I will say, it does seem like for once her professional life is running very smoothly. She did great this season. Like, she had no trouble with work. She balanced things wonderfully. So that's a plus.
Right, and lest we forget, the end of episode 12 ends with her having a porcupine baby, so she gets her baby again. So
she does get it. She does.
So, like, as the next season is likely going to deal with, like, how does she take care of the baby and balance her professional life, and probably bring to light, like, what are the motivations for having a baby, if there are motivations, right?
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get into that in the next season. Briefly here, we also get Todd's plotline to talk about. This is the introduction of the Henry Fondle storyline. He is created because he wants to make Emily feel better, because Emily is breaking up with people and having bad relationships for the sets, and Todd thinks that the right thing to do is to make a sets robot. This is also sort of continuing the asexual plotline of this season as well, because we also get later in the episode Emily trying to, like, cajole Todd into, like, having a relationship again. Also bring up, like, hey, you know, like, some asexuals do have sets, sort of thing. But Todd is very uncomfortable at that proposition as well. So, like, I do think it's good that they keep touching on that part of it. So I like that part of Todd's character staying in line here. But yeah, Henry Fondle is a sets robot. How do you feel about his performance in these episodes?
Don't say that.
his
Alex. Don't say that, man.
Honestly, I thought he was pretty funny in this episode.
Wow.
I mean, like, the humor of everyone taking everything he says as pure genius and taking it completely the wrong way, I honestly think is a pretty good gag. And is relatively harmless, and I like it for that.
All right.
In these isolated episodes, I think it works.
Yeah, like in the next episode, there's this one sequence where the sets robot goes into the CEO's office, and he, like, convinces him to step down with these random statements. And I think because he's working off of the CEO having, like, very interesting dialogue, like, very eloquent about it, and it just ends like, I am powerless in the face of your mesmerizing sexual energy. It's like, okay, well, that's good. I'm out then. Like, I think that little sequence is, like, probably the peak of Henry Fondle as a joke, but yeah, like, it's he's here. This is how he starts. Yeah, so I think that covers most of ancient history. And Head in the Clouds. The Head in the Clouds opens with a weird Margot Martindale scene where,
yeah.
What?
I mean, she's alive, so yay.
Yeah, she's alive. That's good.
I'm glad.
When did we last see her?
End of season 3.
She was, like, escaping
the pasta thing.
Maybe the popo, I think. She got in trouble. It was so long ago.
It was the pasta thing when she collides the Escape from LA, the boat. into
Ah.
a boat carrying the shipment of pasta for Sandro's restaurant. And
that
that's
explains
Sam, you
why
remembered.
she would wash up on shore of this random monastery then.
yeah. God, I
All
can't
right.
believe you guys can't remember last time Margot Martindale was typical. Everybody
Used
not
to
appreciating
go.
Margot Martindale.
Yeah,
She's
Margot
wonderful.
Martindale is now liable to try shooting us for ignoring her
Yeah,
past
exactly.
performances.
I will be saved.
But yeah, like that scene is only to like give the nun a very important dialogue, like you're lacking faith sort of thing, to help Margot recover her memory, and then it's just BoJack because the balloon shows up, and the balloon it appears in the end of the episode because Diane kicks it off and lets it fly away, and so that's the connection, I guess.
I like the one
But-
line in there. It's like, you could be literally anyone, and then
Yeah.
sound things like a powerful Southern matriarch, and
Yeah.
that's like what Margot Martindale usually plays. She was one in the Hannah Montana movie. In fact,
Wow.
I'm glad that's
That's
the
a good
role
fact.
you'd like to credit her with.
yeah, she was in that movie. She's been in many movies, but she was in that movie.
Yeah. Also in this episode, there is the subplot of the popsicle man.
I really like
claiming
this.
plagiarism. Okay, please
You did?
defend this
Okay,
story.
I
yeah,
did.
please,
I
Sam.
thought it was one of the better gags of the season. I don't know. I thought it was like nice and cute and like really innocent in a way. Like, oh, they took this thing from a popsicle stick gag. Like, who gives a flying fuck about who writes the gags on popsicles? The popsicle stick jokes, like those aren't even funny. But like, with all the zany sound effects, and it was great. I loved it. It was just made. It just broke the tension in like a tension-filled episode, in my opinion.
I will say that on second watch, all the goofy sound effects worked a lot more on me. Like, just like I can't even. They're like clown noses in there somewhere, like
It's
little
great.
horns. It's
Way
like,
better than
yeah.
Henry Fondle.
Yes. This is the type
Okay.
of goofy that I like. Michelle, do you have any thoughts on Abel Ziegler and Ziggy Abler?
I for whatever reason, Henry Fundle I thought was hilarious and fun and was super on board for those gags. But these two, I felt like they were wasting space in the episode.
Aw.
It was every time it cut back to, I'm like, oh my god, this still isn't resolved. Princess Carolyn deserves more than these knuckleheads. Just comic relief. But I'm one person, and if you guys really liked it, then that just means BoJack has
Michelle,
something for everyone.
Do you like
Yeah.
popsicles at all?
Okay, it's a little related. In Atlanta, apparently people are really into like fancy popsicles.
Fancy
And there's this-
popsicles.
Yeah, like fancy, like rose ginger,
Oh,
like
no.
springtime gourmet popsicle. Now, a really big deal here, probably because it's so hot all the time. And I tried some that weren't too bad, so they're okay. But like, I'm way more of an ice cream person. I think popsicles are kind of.
I'm a fan of like the popsicle brand popsicles that just taste like frozen Gatorade.
Ah,
That's my
the-
personal favorite.
The ones that taste like space pops from like Walmart that come in like packs of 60.
Oh, do you mean the freeze pops, the ones that come in
Yeah,
like
the freeze pops.
the
Yeah,
plastic and you push them up?
yes, they taste like that.
Look.
Those kind of popsicles.
Mm.
All
Super
I'll say
generic.
is that popsicles are like soft ice cream, and that they melt way too fast,
do.
and therefore they are not worthy of
That
my
is
time.
not true.
Okay,
Ice
that's
cream's the best, Alex.
they are all frozen treats, depending on what kind of flavors you like, are worthy of your time.
But not if I
Yeah.
can't eat them in time.
Oh my god, like why
Faster.
is it gonna take like a half hour to eat a fucking
Yeah,
popsicle?
just-
But then I
Alex?
get brain freeze,
Yeah, just
and then it
RIP.
ruins the
RIP.
satisfaction of getting cooled down.
Your brain comfort and your throat comfort, and then it won't take too long.
Ah.
Just sacrifice your
Fine.
personal comfort, and they won't melt.
In my personal opinion, it shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to eat a popsicle.
All I just want to comment is that also this has been set up as well, because in previous episodes we have seen Flip McVicker eating popsicles as he's writing
Ooh.
his scripts. So I would just like to point that out, that this was
Dude, I
weirdly set up.
popsicles. I should go to the store after.
Yeah.
See if you find any that have jokes on them, because that's also a thing that's weird. Like, do popsicles still have
Yeah,
jokes
they
on
do.
them? Is that a thing? Okay.
I'm pretty sure that they do.
Yeah, and so let's see. Anything else in this episode that we need to cover? I guess we could talk a little bit about the BoJack Gina relationship, because like in this episode is where it kind of like gets serious, sort of. BoJack begins the episode by letting Gina read the reviews, and she gives her earrings. They talk briefly about if they want to go public. BoJack is like, maybe not yet. But by the very end, once BoJack is high off his ass, like, he begins kissing them in public, sort of, and then the relationship is public. So I guess this is just a brief moment to recognize Gina working her way up in the world. I don't think she has much to do in this episode exactly, but at least it's nice to see that she's getting a positive recognition for her work, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think of the random people BoJack has a relationship with every season without fail. She is one of the ones like I feel the most like invested in, just because she's she's trying to have a career. She's not really making it. She's earnest. She doesn't expect very much from the world. And now that she's finally getting a break, I'm kind of like, oh my god, yes, Gina, they love you. You're going to get a second season. You have 2 sentences written about you in an article, and that like makes her day. And I love that. And I just very concerned about her being with BoJack, because he's not a good person to be in a relationship with. And I want her, I want more for her, basically. So I was happy things were going her way that episode.
There's 39-year-old actresses going places.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was a good line.
I like, you always hear the stories about how such and such actor didn't start until they were like older, and like it's always very touching to me.
Yeah, it's very
encouraging. You can be successful in your chosen field later on in life, and you don't have to be like 20 and do it anyway.
Yeah. And I think we already mentioned some of these in the main podcast, but just a lot of snarky TV making fun of lines by Flip McVicker in his introduction, like I hope you all enjoy it because it means you're smart, and notice I said chapter, not episode.
Oh my god, yeah. What a fucking douchebag.
Yeah, and yet these are all very emblematic of peak TV, so like...
I like the little title card that says, a tight hour and 18 minutes later.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's really how it is sometimes.
Yeah, especially on Netflix. Some shows love to take advantage of their...
Oh, yeah, time. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so I think we've covered most of the major plot lines in these episodes. Any final thoughts about anything we've covered here before we sign off, Michelle?
Okay, so a thing that I want to talk about that we hadn't talked about already. BoJack never went to college.
Yeah, he never went to college.
Huh? Remind me of when this is brought up.
When Hollyhock first comes over.
When they first like go to his house, and he's saying like, oh yeah, it must be so fun to learn stuff and be with other people your age. He's like, I bet I would have been great in college. Something to that effect.
Being young and living life and not
Okay. Yeah, I guess we've seen him the youngest. Well, we've seen him as a kid, and then we usually skip to when he's beginning his stand-up career in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So we don't really see what happens in between that. So I guess that's believable that he just like went straight to Los Angeles. Yeah, he played football in school, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So BoJack didn't go to college. That's an important revelation.
Also, I like Todd's little line. Some of my other wacky schemes always end in disaster.
He knows. He's aware.
And I'm just like, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, he said it backfired in the first episode of Henry Fonda, yet Henry Fonda survives for the next 3 episodes.
I know.
Wow, he's spoilers.
He's too powerful to stop.
Spoilers. Henry Fonda dies at the end.
I mean, that is a spoiler.
Everything's a spoiler here.
That's true. I don't know.
Michelle, do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, I can only think about sad ones. The thing I just
Bring
realized.
sad
Okay. So during Hollyhock's visit, we did talk about how BoJack, he does, in his own way, like, he cares about her and he does love her and he wants her to succeed and have a normal life and go to college. But the thing that made me really sad is as soon as their episode kind of becomes an issue of tracking down painkillers, he constantly guilt trips her about it. Like, at least 3 times he brings up, "Oh, I wouldn't be doing this if you hadn't thrown my painkillers away." And that kind of bummed me out, because even though he does have these good instincts to, keep his relationship with her going, and he cares about her a lot, like, in these moments, he's prioritizing his addiction over, her well-being, her safety, and their relationship by constantly, making it feel like her fault. And that's like a not good moment. And it makes me kind of sad. But it's very true to BoJack's character, but it makes me very sad for Hollyhock. Because she is so normal. And she's had such a great normal life. And BoJack is like the farthest thing from a normal, functional person. And I think that's why I kind of like the episode. Just because like he's so dysfunctional. And so seeing them together and seeing her notice all these things that aren't good and aren't normal, even though we're kind of used to them watching him every episode, it's just like it puts it into such a contrast that I just wish so many things were better, but it's still entertaining TV. But yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. These episodes, if nothing else, set up BoJack's spiral into self-destruction, and in the process, destroying his relationships, as usually happens.
Yeah, that happens every season. It's
Yeah.
Just how life is. You have a spiral down every year or so.
Well, if you're BoJack, definitely. Hopefully not if you're Hollyhock.
Yeah, Hollyhock, to her testament, realizes when the situation has gone too far. It's just like, well, I better leave, and she leaves. Good for her. Good for her. And I think it is time for us to begin leaving. We will come back to you later with.
What if I don't
come back to you later with the end of BoJack's spiral in episode 11, as well as episode 12. Those will be our final episodes to cover. Until then, you can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can also talk to us on Discord about BoJack or any other show we cover here at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Alec, aka Frozone. Thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, and Hugh. And other than BoJack Horseman, we've covered recently some OKKO, some Hilda, some Miraculous Ladybug. We've got a wide variety of shows we cover here on Overly Animated. So if you want to take a look at that, feel free to. But yeah, until we finish up our BoJack episode recaps with episodes 11 and 12, we'll talk to you soon. Adios.
Bye.
Bye.